Hello and welcome to the Goofball Coalition, the improv, stand-up, and sketch podcast, where we make them all some smushy thing in the middle, kind of like a Snickers bar has like caramel, peanuts, and nougat all wrapped around with chocolate. We are that of a podcast.
Does Snickers have nougat?
Yeah, that's the bottom layer.
That's that bottom layer?
Mm-hmm.
What? Because the Three Musketeers is like all nougat, huh?
Yeah, that's
like
chocolate.
I used to like that. Don't like that anymore.
That's just podcasts about stand-up.
Yeah.
I don't need that.
Right.
I'm Sarah Kennedy. I'm clearly nougat. I've claimed it. I'm a stand-up comedian.
I'm Alex. I'll be the peanuts.
Great.
And I'm Leslie, and I'm the caramel.
Or the chocolate. We missed a big guy on there.
Chocolate is what we're wrapped around in.
It's true. That's what is that? Stream
caramel in it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
We're all delicious.
Nailed it.
Let's get started.
Welcome to the Goofball Coalition, the podcast that lives where improv, stand-up, and sketch comedy collide. And now, here are your hosts, Alex Knight, Sarah Kennedy, and Leslie Nesbitt.
Woo!
Yeah.
I love that intro. Thank you to Matthew Bloodsmith for being our announcer.
Always. I can't believe he does that every week.
I know. He's the chocolate. That's wrapped up.
Aw.
So today's podcast is, I think, a really interesting episode because, and we've kind of built up to this in the couple episodes prior. Alex, you got a chance to dip your toes back into doing stand-up this week.
I did it.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of dive into that. And then in the third segment, we've got, a regular topic we're going to bring up, but doesn't really warrant its whole episode.
No.
So the current eventy, just I'm holding the tension on that one. We're just going to build suspense toward it.
We'll never know until the
Never
end.
know. Okay, so this past weekend at Dry Heat, we had two different kind of Halloween themed shows. One was called Night of the Living Cover Comics, and it was a benefit show for NAMI, where comedians donated their time, dressed up and memorized a set by a famous comedian that wasn't them, and then came out and performed it. It was awesome. We had two Paul F. Tompkinsons, and they ended the show by doing a bit in unison. It was brilliant. It was exactly a tribute to Paul F. Tompkins and his brand of humor. And then on Saturday night, we had another show called Monster Sets. The idea for it was birthed in this podcast, and we had people.
One of our promises kept.
This podcast keeps its promises. People came dressed as classic movie monsters, and then they did their sets in character as those monsters. So I hosted the show as a werewolf. I came out regular, but then every time I came out on stage, I added something new to my costume. So then by the end of it, I was a full werewolf.
Yes.
Very silly. But the point of this, the reason why I'm building this up like this is because Alex was on the show and he did a set as a zombie. So Alex, talk a little bit about your experience. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it was super, super fun. And it's a thing since day one of this podcast. I think it was like, you're going to try to dip your toes in my world. I'm going to try to dip my toes into your world or whatever. And then we'll both have to dip our toes in Leslie's world. But it's been a long time coming. And it really took, I think, this specific kind of show to give me the courage to get up there. Because, again, stand-up's very vulnerable. And this was, to be fair, a little sneaky because it was a little less vulnerable because it was vulnerable for my character. But at least I had a character to hide behind. But that said, it was super fun to I still got to feel all of the feelings of stand-up and all of that. I don't know, the power of stand-up, that full control of, not just control of the audience, but control of the set, being the director and producer and creator of all of this stuff and not having an ensemble. That said, we'll get into it, but it's an ensemble piece for sure. Even stand up, a night of stand up, all of those people feed into each other and all of that. We're all working together. So those elements were there, but that 5 minutes or whatever, it's all yours. And that is super fun and pretty powerful and kind of scary in some ways, but I felt very prepared. I had a blast. And it was such a fun show. It was just so fun to see all those different monsters. What a cool, unique experience.
Yes.
So, I want to hear a little bit about, because you just mentioned it too, how did you get prepared for the show? What was your writing process like and all that?
Yeah, so So, I had from the Funny Fiesta, we got these little notebooks, and I used my little notebook, my free little swag notebook, swag, whatever. Either one, I think both are acceptable. And just wrote down little zombie jokes, zombie themed jokes, mostly punchlines being brains or whatever. But as I was writing it, like, okay, so the stand-up that I really admire is very deep, personal, storytelling stand-up. And so as I was writing this, my zombie character, like, I don't know, I had a whole bunch of stuff about like trans and how zombies are kind of trans, how they've gone through this change, and all of a sudden people don't accept them, and it's not really a choice, and all this stuff. And it was like this deep, grounded stuff. And then it just felt like too complicated, and again, like not valid. Like, I don't understand that experience, and so for me to even make jokes about that experience like felt weird and whatever. And then my wife was helping me a little bit with it, and she showed me an old Andy Kaufman, I think, on SNL a long time ago, the one with like the kids in the cannon and the cannonballs. Do you know that bit? And just how like it's just this thing where he's like this stupid character, this bad stand-up kind of, this awkward, shy character. And he tells bad jokes, but they land because of the commitment to the character. And so then I just started writing bad zombie puns from the perspective of like, yeah, how much could a zombie actually like get done or whatever? Commit, because I'm an actor, I can commit to my character, and like that will be my strength instead of like eloquent, thought-provoking jokes. It'll be dedication to character and like acting or whatever. So that was my process. And yeah, then once I figured that out, I just weeded it down to like 10 jokes. And then similarly, like setting up, like we've talked about a little bit, without overthinking, a bit of like, not like a timeline, a running order of those jokes and where to put the things. Like I had a couple of dirty jokes like that. I was like, do I need these? I don't necessarily need them, but I put them in at the end or whatever. As like that.
They were very funny.
And they went really well. It's like, yeah, that stuff, understanding the power of that stuff, not making it all dirty, but being like, if it's neutral, and they throw in something dirty at the end, I think people are going to be caught off guard. And I think that worked in that way. And then like a tiny bit of crowd work moment at the end or whatever. So yeah, that was the process. Is like, again, pulling all of those ideas that we've talked about, like it really was a culmination of all of this podcast talk of stand up, and then putting it into this little silly bit or whatever. Yeah. Super fun.
That's awesome. Okay. You also had a pretty unique costume. What pieces were you like, I gotta include this in the costume?
Yeah, so I have an old leather vest from a performance of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern that I did in high school. I played a tragedian in there. And the guy that directed it was such a, like, I don't know, he was a good costumer and just very into details and all that. And so I have this vest that's just been lying around forever. And then I made a shirt, and yeah, it was just fun always to get into a costume, but like fun to think extra about. Like I had a joke about getting shot, and so I made some bullet holes in the shirt and stuff, and then I did my own makeup, and yeah, just super fun. And it was so fun to get backstage and see all those other monsters. Like Frankenstein was done fully in like dark green paint, like from head to toe pretty much. And yeah, it was just cool to see us all bring it in. Of course, Chelsea Sword looked insane as her Sasquatch.
She did so good. It was so amazing.
We took a photo. Oh, sorry, Leslie, what?
I was just going to say, what other monsters were there? Because I wasn't able to go because I was in the show.
Yeah, there was an Ursula and a witch and a Dracula, and who else? The Sasquatch.
We had a Godzilla. And
a ghost.
We
gotta talk about that ghost pic. That was great.
For sure. So yeah, there was like, everybody had a moment that was like really inspired, and I thought it was so cool. But Chelsea's Sasquatch, she, instead of doing stand-up, she did a burlesque bit, and it was so brilliant and so perfect, and
nice next to all the other ones. Like everyone was a little diverse. Like Frankenstein and I, no surprise, had a similar cadence to our like storytelling and our like chunky bad grammar kind of stuff, and so it was nice that we were split, but even still they were still different. He was a little louder and more active, but like, yeah, we had a similar cadence, but it felt like everyone was very different. And that was like such a cool part about it, I think, was the uniqueness of each monster, and then that informing the set. But we took photos after the improv show, because a bunch of people in the improv show were in costume, and we were all like, and then Chelsea was also around, so she popped in the photo, literally like just peeking around a corner. And Jeanette in the improv show later saw that photo, and she was like, "Who is that guest?" And we'll talk about guests in our next episode, but it was like, oh, this guy JD Walsh. And she was like, no, he was on Friday. Who's the guest on Saturday? Who's that guy? And we're like, what are you talking about? There was no, we were like, was it Wes? Wes had sunglasses in the photo. And she was like, no, there was some guy in the photo. It was Chelsea. And she didn't realize, because that makeup was so good. She looked like the Geico caveman.
She
It
did.
was really
So
good.
good.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was the best makeup I've ever seen on a Sasquatch. And
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of Sasquatch makeup.
Yeah. Yeah. You have.
I haven't.
I've seen a lot, but they're always blurry in photos, so it's hard to like document it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's true. Hers was the best
Yeah.
and the most clear.
It was. So, okay, let's go back and talk about some highlights that we saw in the show from other monsters. So,
Yeah.
Chelsea, definitely a highlight. She did so good. She did the Divinals I Touched Myself, and she had a big like poster of actual Bigfoot, and so she was just like in love with Bigfoot for her piece, and it was really wonderful.
It was good. She was in like a full hairy onesie, and then she took that off and was in a skimpier onesie that was hairy. That was pretty good too. Yeah, there's some really good stuff.
The
The ghost was
bit.
great.
So what happened was Tyler was the ghost, and we introduced him, and nobody came on stage, but we made it to where like the curtains moved a little bit, and I shook nobody's hand, and then I went off, and he had one of the wireless mics in the back, and he just did his whole set pacing backstage, and so the audience had an empty stage, but they had to perform.
They
love
looked
that.
like so content enjoying that magic trick. Like
Yeah.
people, I think, were truly loving staring at that empty stage, looking at the mic and like imagining that ghost was there. It was like a really believable
Oh,
magic trick for sure.
that's
Yeah, it's
so
really
good.
It was funny, and even at the very end of it, he goes like, can't you see who I'm pointing at? Like, it was just
I think he did a little bit of like audience like observation before he's like, you with the glasses in the front or
Yeah.
whatever. And so that person's like, what? Yeah, really good.
that was a really, really funny one. But I was really surprised that, and Kelly and I talked about this a bunch too, about how many monsters are still on the table. Like,
Oh yeah. I think, yeah, you should can any ones that were last this year, and like it has to be fresh ones. There's mummies and sea creatures and yeah, all
La
kinds of stuff.
Llorona.
La
La
Llorona. Yeah, there's a bunch of,
Llorona.
like, chupacabras and like lots of regional monsters. I think that there's like a Cthulhu. You can get into some big time like literary monsters and that kind of stuff. Also, slashers if you want to kind of bend the rules a little bit and have like some
Ghost face or
Ghostface,
whatever.
Yeah, like
those kind of
Jason.
things.
Jigsaw.
Mhm.
Duckies. No killer dolls.
Pinhead.
Yeah, we didn't have any killer dolls, so no like Annabelles or anything like that either.
If we
Because
could get a
even the
ventriloquist.
ventriloquist dummy would be incredible. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So lots for next year. But
A shark, a Jaws.
oh man. Oh yeah.
It's like it's a lot. There's a lot of possibilities.
So that was a fun one. And okay, so let's talk about the future for you and stand up. So
Yeah.
are you feeling like you want to do it again? Are you
I'll come
feeling
back.
like-
Yeah, got that confidence boost.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I think a thing that I was talking to Rusty Rutherford about it because he's very good, and just talking about our decades of experience doing
Mhm.
comedy. And I think one thing that I have that translates, and I think we all have, is that like confidence in just holding your space.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
like I have that, and I think that's one of the hardest things probably to do in stand up is to not panic, not rush, not feel uncomfortable up there. So just feeling that I still have that I'm able to like say a joke, set it up at my own pace and like wait or whatever. Yeah, I'm not afraid of it anymore. I'm not afraid anymore.
Good.
But yeah, I'll definitely come. I think Matthew invited me to do maybe the debates coming up.
Yeah.
So like, again, maybe these 7:30 quirky shows are where I'll get back in there before I experiment with the 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
was gonna say, like, I would be more comfortable putting on a character and then doing stand up.
Mhm.
It's so vulnerable by yourself.
Mhm.
Kudos to all stand-ups who do that.
Mm-hmm.
I did it, for a second. But like, yeah, if I could do somebody like there's an extra boop boop, you know what I mean?
So-
Like
yeah.
you do feel more confident.
Slap a
and
mustache on yourself.
yeah.
I was thinking it would be fun if I just funny and sad if I just kept the zombie going. Like I do stand up open mics all over town, but it's just that character. I'm too
It's your
afraid to
weekends,
take off
you're
that
all,
mask. It's new material every time, but it's the same fucking character.
it's possible.
January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
January
Well,
zombie.
The nice thing is, Leslie, we really do have lots and lots of opportunities. So I'll let you know what we've got coming up. And we do have this one show that I'm very excited about that is just a Taco Bell themed show. So if you wanted to come up with a Taco Bell themed character, somebody who lives the Live Moss mentality or whatever, I think you'd like. We're gonna have little challenges and games and Taco Bell themed stuff. So that would be a fun one to hop into.
Someone I was talking to had a point about Night Living cover comics, and they were asking me. They were mostly like verbatim and in character, but like there's also a world where you do cover, like a cover band will either do it exactly or they'll do their interpretation.
Concept of it. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I wonder if like, yeah, they were asking me which one that is. If it's like I'm taking Mitch Hedberg's material, but then I'm like,
I mean, the
filtering
Mitch
it through
Hedberg we
me.
had did entirely original material and nobody noticed because it sounded so much
Oh,
like
that's pretty good.
original stuff.
I was going to ask if there was a Mitch Hedberg because
Oh, yes. Almost every year there's a Mitch Hedberg. He's the vampire of.
So good.
But I will say there's a show that happens on both coasts called Trick or Treat, and it's basically cover comics, but like usually the comics come up with like a take on it. Like one of the most famous ones was a guy came out on stage as like Jerry Seinfeld, but his entire set was just jokes about his 17-year-old girlfriend, and like it was just like a really funny like character roast basically, and it was a really inspired piece. And then I know like Mowry, like Sammy Mowry, who lives in LA now, last year they did Matt Rife, but they did it as the sexy Squidward. So they dressed up like all chiseled, like the way that Matt Rife is, and then did it that way. And I thought that's pretty brilliant too. So there's lots of ways that people can take it. And I'm excited to see that one. That one happens every single year. So I'm hoping those two shows that we did this last weekend will become like our Halloween traditions every year.
Yeah, those are a great idea. Super fun. Yeah, I want to say just a couple other things. Like you ran it really well. I felt really taken care of. Like, you know, there was some text chains before saying like, what do you need? Like, here's some options. We'll have these things available if you want it. Smoke machine, all of this. If you want a crazy intro, we can do that. Do you want to be introduced as this, whatever? And then even getting there, you guys were like really welcoming to everyone. You had like, you know, snacks and stuff backstage or whatever. And like, yeah, just felt really taken care of. Lineup was nice and clean. All the other stand-ups were super kind and nice. Like it was funny to be like, I know some of them a little bit like Lekka and stuff, but other ones it was like, hi, who are you? But everyone's very nice and like accepting and welcoming. So
well, Leslie, you need to know this too. Backstage, while Alex was on stage killing, and I mean that in that he was eating everybody's brains. Everybody backstage, the other stand-up comedians were like, who is this guy? Why is he so good? Where did he come from? What's going on? And then we had to be like, that's Alex. Come on, you know, like
so
where'd he come from? Is he from out of town?
Yeah.
What's he doing here?
It was brilliant.
It's very sweet. Yeah, he's been working across the hall on again, it's funny, it's like the same thing. I've been working that muscle. I just haven't been doing that kind of dancing. But I'm a dancer. I can dance.
Yeah.
We all are.
I have no doubt that Alex was amazing.
It was very fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. What else about that night?
Any other like final thoughts on it? A little button to put on it? I think yeah, no, if I can come up with other fun things like that too, that's what I want 730s to be down at Heat. So we have lots of options for that. Okay.
That's such a great idea.
Well, we came up with it, so. Okay, let's go to segment 3. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, segment 3. Obviously, if you are a longtime listener, you know this is where we just tie up loose ends, we plug stuff that we're doing, and then we bring up like some topics that we want to discuss that maybe wouldn't fit in their own full episode. And Alex brought a great one today. And even before we started recording, there's lots to discuss. So, Alex, why don't you set it up?
Oh yeah, just that Mr. It's Heathcliff, Tony Heathcliff, right? Of
Hinchcliffe,
of course, of Heathcliff the cat. Did a Trump rally in, was it New York? I think it was in New York, maybe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's like a roast comic, I would say, in a lot of ways, and yeah, he's just very an edgelord, and that's why we've talked about a lot of these things before, bully comics, all this kind of stuff. So it like kind of blends in or whatever. But yeah, he spoke at a MAGA rally, and a lot of people were offended by the things he said. No doy. But he does a show called Kill Tony, and yeah, Sarah knows a little bit more about it. I've always seen a little bit of it. But yeah, so Leslie was like, who and what is this man? So
Yeah, now that you said his whole name, I'm like, oh, I think I know what you're talking about now from that rally. I know exactly what. But again, I still don't know about him, which is good because I don't care.
I really liked the idea of his show a ton when I first heard about it, like 5-6 years ago. I'm sure he's been doing it forever. But yeah, Sarah, do you want to talk a little more about it? Because you can probably say
for
it more
sure. So
eloquently than me.
yeah, I mean, obviously that rally was, especially because of the reaction to it, the biggest thing that he's done. But before that, the biggest thing that he was really known for was he was one of the most like roasty roasters on the Tom Brady roast a couple months ago. And so he got a lot of notoriety for that. But Kill Tony itself is pretty well known. It's definitely it's everywhere on the internet. I know a lot of people who don't even do comedy who have Kill Tony clips that show up on their algorithms.
It seems like an indie show, but like the biggest indie show. Like,
it is, yeah. So it started as something really small. Like it was just basically an open mic that had him in a panel with a couple other comics, and then they would kind of give shit to the comedians that were trying to do their open mic set at the end, and then it kind of turned into something much bigger than that. And then when Joe Rogan moved to Austin, they started doing it in Joe Rogan's club called The Mothership. And then it's kind of become like the flagship show of The Mothership. And comedians can go, you get 2 minutes. And then at the end, they can kind of rag on you. And more than likely than not, the clips go viral. And I know a couple comedians whose entire careers have changed because they've been on Kill Tony. And then I know some people who just got obliterated on Kill Tony, and then I know some people who are friends of mine who have been panelists on Kill Tony, and so like it touches so many parts of the comedy world right now that it's like it's kind of spun off its own brand of comedy itself, which is the kind of stuff that we talk about on here too, where it's like it's a different sect of stand-up comedy than I usually like subscribe to, but harsher, edgier, that kind of stuff. Does that kind of fill you in, Leslie?
Yeah. It sounds familiar, all the things you're saying, but like it's never come up in my algorithm.
Really?
If that makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. I have a lot of comedy that comes up, but that's never shown itself, I don't think.
Well, now that we're talking out loud about it, it will.
Yeah, now, your phone is listening to you and it's going, no.
I mean, again, I like the idea of a lot. It's like American Idol, but like mean. And you know what you're signing up for. You know you're probably going to get torn apart or whatever. But like, yeah. But he spoke at that rally and like, yeah, it blew up all over. And yeah, people were real upset about what he said about Puerto Rico.
He did that thing afterwards where it's like, oh, you can't take a joke. And it's like, but that wasn't funny. Like, some of them aren't funny though, you know?
I mean, you try to write jokes for an audience, and I will say I watched the clip, and I didn't even think the audience that was there live really dug the jokes too much. I mean, it was a full Madison Square Garden. It was Madison Square Garden. But
they were like really hungry, and so a couple of the jokes they like bid on because I think they were like, I want to laugh at this, but yeah, I think most of them kind of landed a little flat.
Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting, and this podcast is going up today, so at least we're within the week of it happening. But like every podcast is talking about this week. Like it is a mandatory topic. So look at us being contemporary and trendy. So good for us.
We're with it.
I don't know. Kill Tony is so interesting because it's like I know a comedian who's here locally who's been on it. I know a comedian who used to be here who's done it before. I know a regional comedian who also books a lot of stuff in Colorado that has been on it. And then I knew, we had this guy in the Funny Fiesta like 3 years ago, and he got on it, and then he got to perform at the Kill Tony that was in Madison Square Garden, which I'm now thinking was some sort of build up or practice run for Tony to try it out on that stage. But and it's so interesting because we'll have comedians reach out to us. I know I'm rambling, but they'll reach out to us being like, I want to get booked at Dry Heat. And then they'll use Kill Tony as like their number one credit. And it's like, for me and Kelly, it's usually like an automatic no, just because we know that doesn't mesh well with our audience.
Sure.
And so anybody who's ever gotten on with a Kill Tony credit is usually in spite of it because they're funny outside.
Yeah. That's
right.
So funny.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I think one other little thing is Jon Stewart came out and was like, hey, he was fine. Like
he's a comedian doing a comedian's job.
And I do agree with that. Like that's what that guy does. And so like, yeah, if you were expecting him to be a nice comedian, then yeah, that's a bummer or whatever. But like, yeah, he did what he does. Big surprise or whatever. And I do support freedom of speech. And I do think it's a world where like, yeah, let him find his audience. And he clearly has an audience. It's not me really. And it's not us, I think. But like, yeah, I definitely support you can make any joke you want. Just like realize you're going to find your crowd. And I don't know, whatever that means to you, whoever that crowd becomes.
Yeah. It may not be the best crowd.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting too, because I think about like Jim Breuer and Rob Schneider have both kind of taken that same angle with their comedy in recent years. And so like Jim Breuer to a really extreme level, and then Rob Schneider just to a weird level that like he keeps getting kicked off of shows in the middle of his sets and stuff because he takes it like very like racist and like wildly. I think if you were showing up thinking he was going to be like making copies or like you can do it or like that kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden you were presented with that as an audience, you'd probably be like, get this guy off, you know?
Yeah.
Sure.
Who is this guy?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. One of the things he said was like, yeah, he kept getting in the stand-up set at the rally. He said something like censorship is real in America, and like he keeps getting notes of things he can't say on his show. What does he mean by that? Does he mean his live show, or does he mean is there some sort of
no? I mean,
like,
he means his live show because the way that it's broadcast or whatever.
Yeah, so I wonder who
even that day had stuff in it that the campaign told him to cut. Like he was going to call Kamala Harris the C word. He was going to like fully, and then they were like,
oh, and they censored him. Oh, yeah. There you go. Like, there you go. That America that you're defending that believes in no censorship censored you. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like, yeah, you can say whatever you want, freedom of speech, but the venue, the place, the audience, those things will dictate it. Yeah. And you will never escape that. I don't think there is ever a world where like, I don't know, you shouldn't think about what you're saying. I don't know.
When you think about it, isn't it kind of odd that they did hire a roasting comedian for a presidential rally at Madison? Like, I don't know. Like, would you hire a guy that just has insult comedy? I don't know.
Were coming out to defend him. One of the things that they did was they dug up what's his name? The old roasty guy who was like
Rodney Dangerfield.
No, roastier. I cannot believe I'm not thinking of his name. It's he was part of the Rat Pack, and he
Nice Clay.
No, older than that. Like
part of the Rat Pack. Oh,
yeah. Like this is a fun guessing game to play because I have it in my head, and it's just going to take me a second to do it, and to even think through it is going to be dead air on this podcast. So I keep wanting to say Don Knotts, and it was not Don Knotts. It was the opposite.
Don Rickles.
Yeah, Don Rickles.
Okay, gotcha.
So they had the set of Don Rickles being like, look, apparently it's fine if this guy does it way back in the day, but now you don't want to let anybody do it anymore. And it wasn't from a rally. It was from Reagan's inauguration in the 80s. And he was roasting people who were in the room. Like he was looking at people in the eye and being like, look at that. Look at that guy. Look at George H.W. Bush. I don't know why we're calling you by your middle initials yet, but we are. And then like roasting him like to his face. Versus this, which is just like roasting
the other side, like
races of people, and countries. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Isn't there still a presidential like banquety thing where there's like
the press dinner or whatever the correspondence dinner?
Yeah.
And then it's supposed to have somebody roast you to your face. Like Colbert did a really good one, and whatever one that Obama also spoke at is what apparently inspired Donald Trump to be like, I'm going into politics because he hated getting roasted that night.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that.
So interesting. So like all of the things we talk about, like there's no answers.
No.
Just some people talking about the things.
Maybe the answer is just roast them, but roast the people in the room. It's easier. Like we talked about in another podcast. They have the agency to then clap back at you.
But yeah, there's like consent in some way. There's, I've come into this room to receive this. And again, I have my faculties to defend myself if I truly need to. Or whatever, I guess. Yeah.
And that's the best part about the freedom of speech is that freedom of speech bumps up against somebody else's freedom of speech. And then in that way, it kind of like self-regulates.
Yeah, then you got this little freedom war going on of, two people freedom of speeching each other.
Yeah.
What a nice way to end this topic.
I'm going to freedom of speech you.
Okay, cool. So, what do y'all have coming up? We can even talk about stuff that's happening tonight if we want to.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, the
Like
Halloween jam.
jam.
There's gonna be pizza and candy and costume contests and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Les, I mean, you know better. You're hosting it tonight.
Yeah, me and Kevin put together some fun games, Taskmaster type games / fun improv games. So we're going to be doing that, and then a costume contest. I bought one prize for the winner.
I will double that prize and give 2 tickets to a dry heat show.
Oh, nice. That's
Great. I was going to say I got one prize, guys. I'm poor. I got you one prize, but now we have an even better
gotta have something around here. I'll bring something. Yeah, I'll bring another one. Cool. I'll bring another prize.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. 7:30, I think. 7:30 is
7:30.
the jam time. And so we'll see you there. I mean, what else to do on Halloween Thursday than go to a fun jam for Halloween?
Yeah, it's gonna be a big old party that you are all invited to.
Yeah.
Great.
Besides that, though, just I think shows Friday and Saturday at 8. Our new house team, the Nightcap, has started performing. They've had 2 shows. They've got their 3rd show that is Fridays at 9:15. Yeah. So if you want to see a Herald improv format, classic Herald, come check it out.
Love that. And I've been seeing like some Cat on a Leash, Left on Red stuff.
Cat on a Leash has a show. Do they have a show this weekend?
It's this weekend.
This Saturday, I believe.
Yeah, this Saturday.
That's so cool. I love giving them that later slot. I think it's such a neat way to kind of fill up the, I don't know, makes more life downtown.
Yeah. I mean, it's so nice that we're trying to do 2 shows. You're doing 2 shows or whatever. It's nice. A lot of options downtown on the comedy corner.
Yeah. This weekend over at Dry Heat at 7:30 on Friday, we've got a show called Wheel of Bits. And so all the comedians will also spin a spinning wheel and it'll land on a challenge. And have to do a challenge during their set. We've got lots of different ones planned for them that are very goofy.
I saw that spin wheel backstage. A spinning wheel is something else. It's a wheel.
It's like what to
make
Sleeping Beauty, she got herself
turn straw into gold.
Oh yeah, that too.
But that's fun. You can just erase things on there. That is a cool thing to have.
It's wonderful. Yeah. And then on Saturday we're doing this show called Crack a Laugh, where comedians not only have to make the audience laugh, but sitting on stage next to them in the throne is the comedian that performed before them, and they've got to make them break and laugh during their set too. So it's like Make Them Laugh from the 90s from Comedy Central, kind of.
Cool.
Oh my God, I love it.
Any chance to use that throne some more is really
you've got a throne, you've got a wheel.
Yeah, it'd be weird if you didn't use the throne. I mean,
I'm trying to build out a library of goofy things, and this week I bought one of the guns that opens up and says bang.
That's cool.
Figure out a way to use that too.
Do you have a big crook yet?
No, big crooks are expensive, and they don't really make them anymore, and they don't make them to be like the full.
My mom has one, but I think she still uses it for her sheep. But if she ever is getting rid of it, I'll donate it.
Let me know her vendor.
Yeah, we'll do. She's got a crook guy in Placitas, I think.
Perfect.
He's a crook.
Yeah.
Oh, I won the Break Me Laugh. Good.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, friends. Well, I think that's going to be it for us this week. But thank you all for listening. Have a happy Halloween, and we'll see you all next time.
Peace out.